you really need to think about is whether or not you are able to do this in a way where you're not increasing fees based on choices that you made for personal reasons. For staffing, are you going to provide them equipment such as a computer, telephone, scanner, printer? If you are, have them sign an equipment policy so that they know what they can use it for and that they have to return it if their employment with you ends. Because the last thing you want to do is make a huge move and a huge change to your life, both professional and personal, and find out that you didn't follow all the rules.
Welcome, and thank you for joining us for another Justia webinar. My name is Nina, and I'll be the moderator for today. Now, to kick things off, I want to go ahead and introduce our speaker for today, Lauren Scardella. Lauren Scardella is a graduate of American University in Washington, D.C. and Rutgers Law School in Newark, New Jersey. She has practiced exclusively in municipal court and criminal defense since 2009, with a particular focus on DWIs, traffic offenses, and criminal matters in New Jersey municipal courts. Ms. Scardella is an experienced legal educator and has been recognized by her peers in Super Lawyers magazine for DWI defense every year since 2023, after being named Super Lawyers Rising Star in the same practice area from 2017 through 2021. The webinar presentation that you're about to watch will be approximately 1 hour, and Lauren is happy to take questions from the audience as we go. So if you have a question that arises, you can always submit it by clicking the Q&A button in the control panel at the bottom of your screen and sending them in there. Now, without further ado, here is Lauren to discuss No Office, No Problem, how a New Jersey attorney built an ethical remote law practice.
So welcome. Thank you so much to Nina. Thank you to Justia for inviting me to give this talk. I'm so happy to do it. It is actually something that I feel pretty darn passionate about, given that it's something that I've done myself, both in New Jersey, where I practice and used to reside, and also in Arizona, where I now live but I still practice in New Jersey. So without further ado, let's get started. Today's agenda is we're just going to give you the background on how I got to this place. Ethical considerations under the New Jersey Rules of Professional Conduct. Some of you, maybe most of you, may not be from New Jersey. These probably track pretty closely to the RPCs of other states, but as I'm a New Jersey licensed attorney only, that's what I can speak on, so I'll be doing that. I'm going to recommend some technology for you and tell you what's in my tech stack. And then I'm going to go into some practical tips on making your smaller solo practice fully remote. So I'm basically just focusing on small and solo practices because that's my experience. I've never worked in a law firm that was more than 2 attorneys big, and I've been on my own since 2017. And then finally, is remote work here to stay? I've got some predictions. I don't know if it's going to be accurate or not. I certainly hope so. Maybe that's giving away too much of the game if I am telling you that I do think so, or I hope so. Anyway, let's get started. So, like I said, I'm Lauren. I did, just to back up, before my 2017 opening my first law firm, I began practice with a lawyer named Samuel Lewis Sachs. He taught me certainly not everything I know about running a remote law firm, but a lot of my knowledge when it comes to my practice areas comes from him, or began with him. And it was just the two of us. I became a partner there, and then in the end, it just didn't, as happens in law firms, didn't work out for me. And I decided to leave, and I opened my first solo practice in September of 2017, and I called that the Law Offices of Lauren E. Scardella. You can see at the bottom of your screen that that's not the current name of my law firm. But so that law office was a traditional office environment. I had an office in another law firm's office, and it was working for me mostly. I didn't really think that there was anything wrong with it, but um in the end, as we'll see, I changed my mind. I hired a virtual assistant in 2018. She worked from home. I was working from my office. There just wasn't any place in this little office where I had was operating my firm to put a physical human being. So I decided to go the virtual assistant route. And then in June of 2019, I made my practice fully work from home, remote. And why did I do that? Well, I lived about, I don't know, 10 minutes or so from my office. And so I was staying home a lot of days because I had the full setup, laptop, phone. I even had, my voice over IP phone in my home. So eventually I just thought, I don't really want to go in every day. I'm paying rent. What's the point? So I decided to make my office fully remote. I paid the same firm that I was renting the physical office space from. I paid them an amount for, we'll call it rent every month, but basically it allowed me to keep the address. They get the mail there, and then I could go in, a few times a month and meet with clients in person if they wanted to. And I was finding that they really didn't care that much. I had a lot of clients who just were applauding my decision to go remote. And some of them, sure, some of them wanted in-person meetings, and I was happy to oblige them. But a lot of them really didn't. I would meet them in court in person. That was obviously back in 2019 before COVID hit and things really, really became remote. In February of 2020, again, just before COVID, I partnered with Nancy and Idalot to form Idalot and Scottsdale Law. And we did basically the same thing. We had two office addresses. She was located in a different county than me, so it really allowed us to expand both of our geographical areas, pool our resources, and we had those office addresses, but we both worked from home. And about a month after we opened our doors, hung our shingles, so to speak, COVID hit. And that was scary, honestly. Interesting, but to say the least, scary. Not just because of the virus itself, which was scary enough, but also because we didn't know where we were going to get our money. The police were not allowed in New Jersey for a time to sort of do any proactive policing. And Nancy Ann did the same kind of law that I did. So it was a little bit crazy, I guess, because if the police aren't stopping people and they're not arresting people, then where do we get our clients? Nancy picked up some family work. It wasn't her favorite thing, but desperate times. And then, of course, everything opened back up. And by open back up, I mean I would think about May of 2020, the New Jersey Municipal Court said, okay, we're going to have court. We can't not have court. We've got all these open cases. And so what they did was they started doing court on Zoom, which was, again, interesting, not scary, interesting. And it stuck, at least in New Jersey. It really did stick. In June of 2024, I opened the Scottsdale Law Firm LLC. Nancy and I just, as happens with partners, we just decided to go our separate ways. Still very good friends. Still occasionally pool resources. Sometimes she'll handle a court appearance for me. I got some advice from her recently on a new type of case that I hadn't done before that she had. So everything's good, but I operated the Scottsdale Law Firm same way we were operating Idalot and Scottsdale Law. And what I mean by that is I was in my house and I had moved slightly closer to the office address. But again, they were just collecting mail for me for the most part. And because it was post COVID, most of the court appearances are still on Zoom or were still on Zoom. And then in June of 2025, Scardella Law Firm moves to Arizona. That's a pretty picture from near where my apartment is. By the way, if you own a home and you go back to apartment living, I got to tell you, I highly recommend it because all of a sudden somebody else has to pay for all the repairs and stuff. It's great. Um, there's a lot to be said for home ownership too. And I was a homeowner and I loved that. But I did not love the stress of having to repair everything myself, or well, by myself. I mean, I have absolutely no skill at that. So by myself, I mean, hire people, more money. So I moved to Arizona. I had been coming here on vacation. I met a man. We decided to move in together, and I did not want to stay in New Jersey. I don't like, it's not that I don't like New Jersey. I love New Jersey. I don't want to tell you that I don't like New Jersey. I do. I love it. But I've always loved Arizona. So this was the logical next step for me. And we're engaged. We're getting married next year. So happy endings. Okay. Substantive stuff, the really fun stuff, the ethical stuff. So if you are going to operate a fully remote legal practice in New Jersey, and I assume most other states, obviously you're going to have to follow their rules of court and the rules of professional conduct. And on the court rule aspect, so Court Rule 1, colon 21-1, who may practice in appearances in court for qualifications. So in New Jersey, you don't have to maintain a fixed physical location, but you have to set up your practice in such a manner as to assure, as set forth in RPC 1.4, prompt and reliable communication with and accessibility by clients, other counsel, judicial and administrative tribunals for which the attorney may practice, provided an attorney must designate one or more fixed locations where client files and the attorney's business and financial records may be inspected on short notice by duly authorized regulatory authorities. Fun story. About 2 weeks or so after I moved here, I got a notice from the Office of Attorney Ethics saying that I had been randomly selected for a financial audit. Super fun. And they gave me a date. They said it would not be postponed, it would be in person at my office. And I was, uh, you know, not thrilled because I had just gotten here and I had no intention of going back to New Jersey that quickly. I was able to call them and I left them a voicemail. They called me back and said, hey, well, let's see what we can do. They allowed me to do it virtually. I just had to submit bank statements and stuff. You do have to have a place to get mail. You've got to have a place where a process can be served. So that's where, in my practice, that office comes um, into play. I see there are a couple questions already, and I will answer them a little bit later, but I just wanted to acknowledge I do see them. Okay. I think I did. Did we finish that one? Yeah. Okay. So, um, this is the important thing. So an attorney who's not domiciled in the state and doesn't maintain a fixed physical location for practice of law in the state, but who otherwise meets all the qualifications for practice of law, has to designate the clerk of the Supreme Court as an agent upon whom service of process can be made for the purposes set forth in subsection 1A in the event that service cannot otherwise be effectuated pursuant to the appropriate rules of court. Again, I maintain a fixed physical location in New Jersey by having the ability to receive mail and service of process at that office. They will accept process on my behalf and all of that. So I don't have to designate the clerk of the Supreme Court as the agent, but you need to check these things. These are really important, right? You've got to check to make sure that you are following all the rules of your state so that if you do have to do something like designate the clerk of your state Supreme Court as an agent, to accept service of process, that you're doing that. Because the last thing you want to do is make a huge move and a huge change to your life, both professional and personal, and find out that you didn't follow all the rules. So research it heavily before you do it. Um, these RPCs are more about keeping in contact with your clients, and so communication. Now, you may have noticed I said I live in Arizona and I practice in New Jersey. So communication could become an issue because there's a pretty significant time difference. I don't know how many of you know this, pardon me, but Arizona does not observe daylight savings time. So as of last week, I'm always in the mountain time zone. I was on Mountain Standard Time and everybody else was on um, standard time in their time zone. Here's the thing. Now you guys have daylight savings. And so because we don't jump forward, I have essentially jumped back an hour. I am essentially living now in the Pacific time zone for the next, whatever, 8 months or something until we go back to standard time. It makes things a little more complicated. It makes me have to get up a lot freaking earlier. I had court at 6 a.m. yesterday because it was a 9 a.m. New Jersey start time. I had court at 7 a.m. today. That was slightly more reasonable. Usually, the courts are pretty accommodating with giving me a start time in the afternoon if I request it, but I don't always. Sometimes it's just easier to get things done in the beginning of the day. But the thing with the time zones, at least for me, is I want to make sure that I'm maintaining the lines of communication. So I do have a client communication guide that I send out with every new client via email for their e-signature. Do they read it? I don't know. Based on the number of cold calls I get, I would guess that a fair number of them don't read them. But it tells them exactly this that's in subsection A. It tells them how, when, and where they can communicate with me, what the best method of communication is, because I'm a solo and all I have is an answering service, answering the phone for me. I don't have any assistants or anything. Then I would prefer, for instance, that they send me an email or a client portal communication message to schedule any meetings or schedule any phone calls. I'm happy to meet with them via Zoom, via phone, however they want to do it. But I ask that they email me because it's frankly easier for me than trying to jump on the phone every time it rings. And also, I don't always have their case top of mind or know exactly what they're talking about or when their court date is, all these things that they might ask, which, at least in my opinion, would be more reasonable to put in an email. But um, I digress. Lawyer shall keep a client reasonably informed about the status of the matter and promptly comply with reasonable requests for information. That's on all of us. We're all busy. Sometimes we are so busy that we forget to respond to emails, or we don't respond to them in the uh, like time frame that a client might want. But promptly doesn't have to mean that minute. If your client expects it that minute, then you probably need to set some parameters with them. But that's a client management issue. I trust you guys can all try, to figure that out. If you need some advice on how I try to manage my clients' expectations in terms of how fast I may be able to reply, happy to do that. And then a lawyer shall explain a matter to the extent reasonably necessary to permit the client to make informed decisions regarding the representation. That's, lawyering 101, I think. So, Yeah. So here we go. Now, um, fees are always a topic that have to be discussed. So they have to be reasonable. Every jurisdiction has one of those rules, I would I would guess. And I don't want to speak on anything that's not New Jersey, but factors that make a fee unreasonable if you're practicing remotely from another state. What about in-person court appearances? What about the fact that I have to get up at, 5 o'clock in the morning? No, that doesn't make the fee reasonable. I, for in-person court appearances, I have people that will go for me. Um, and I do see that there's another question, and I will answer that one, I promise. It will come into play a little bit later. So, and that one was from Kristen. And I will answer Howard's question as well later, as well as the anonymous one. Um, so the responsibilities of partners, supervisory lawyers, and law firms. So you have to consider, local counsel for court appearances if you're not living locally to where your practice is, as I do not. I have sort of a network of attorneys that I can call on for in-person appearances. I pay them per diem. I do not add that to my client's fee. Um, Nor do I actually add it in when I am setting a flat fee. I operate entirely on flat fees. Okay. So I don't charge by the hour, but I'm charging the same fees as I was before. I did not increase my fees based on the fact that I made a choice to move away. Um, so that is something that I think would make a fee unreasonable. But when you are engaging local counsel, gotta make sure that they know what they're doing. Don't send in, somebody who is a real estate lawyer on a complicated DWI case, who might not have any idea about standards of proof or discovery or what the elements of the offense are. You're still the attorney. You're still going to be the one handling the case. You're just sending somebody in your stead to hold your client's hand and put a plea through, or I was considering having another attorney do a trial for me. Generally speaking, I would probably just go back to New Jersey for a trial. Again, they are responsible for my trial fee. They're not responsible for my airfare. I made the choice to move. Okay. So that's just something that I think you really need to think about, is whether or not you are able to do this in a way where you're not increasing fees based on choices that you made for personal reasons. But if you're increasing your fees, they're because, your overhead is different, or the costs are different, things that make your fees reasonable, not that they that have to do with your personal decisions. Here's something, and I apologize. I know I say a lot, but I'm going to try not to. But I just did it again. Reset, Lauren. So, court rule in New Jersey 1:21-6, bank accounts and record keeping. So you do have to have at least two bank accounts in New Jersey: an attorney trust account and an attorney business account. The business account can be in any bank. It does not have to be in a New Jersey financial institution. I used to use, well, I've used a bunch of different banks, but I used to use TD Bank. I still use that for my trust account. I now use Wells Fargo for my attorney business account because TD Bank does not operate in Arizona. That being said, my attorney trust account is with TD because it is approved by the New Jersey Supreme Court for attorney trust accounts, and I don't use it. So I don't need constant access to it. I have $1 in it. It's the same $1 that's been in there since the beginning. And that works for me because I do flat fees that are earned upon receipt. So it wasn't an issue. I also found that it was extremely onerous, although Wells Fargo is approved in New Jersey. They had a very strange process for opening a trust account, and I just said, screw it, I'm going to keep my trust account with TD. If in the future I began using the trust account more, for instance, if I had a client who was going to owe restitution, they would have to put that in my trust account. Now, I can make deposits to my trust account because I use a payment processor, and I would just have them do it, deposit it that way. I have trust checks, I can send them out. So, but generally speaking, I don't use it. But restitution that would be owed, that I would pay directly, that's something that would make me use it. But anyway, this rule also has a full list of record-keeping responsibilities for bank accounts, and if you are smart like I think I am, you hire a bookkeeper, because record-keeping is not my passion. I think I keep good records, but at least not when it comes to the bank accounts. It's confusing to me. I used to try to reconcile all my own bank accounts, and after one $1,200 mistake, I said, you know what, it's time to it's time to hire somebody. I use a firm called Legalese Bookkeeping, and they are wonderful, and they know how to use all the different softwares, and they know trust accounting. Um, let's see. This is something I would I'll answer now. So Leonard has asked, although I do not practice in your areas of practice, I think it's very rare to make money on a flat fee basis. I would agree that I don't know if it's very rare, but it's less frequent, less common. I would agree. Significant number of people are comfortable with Zoom, but there are a significant number who like only in person. How do you feel about payments from clients by Zelle on your operating account with Wells Fargo? I don't have a problem with Zelle. It's allowed by New Jersey. And yes, there are people that and I don't know if Leonard, if you're talking about people that are comfortable with Zoom, like clients or judges, but yeah, there are some that are okay only with Zoom, some who like only in person. In New Jersey, at least when it comes to the municipal courts, you don't get a choice about virtual versus in person. Um, there's a Supreme Court order, which I will get to later, that talks about when things are supposed to be in person and when they're supposed to be virtual. So I haven't had a problem with it. I've been sort of steadily training the clients to be more and more comfortable with it over the last 6 years since COVID began. And I think that there was really a shift in attitude on that, such that it's not really a big deal. At least I haven't found it to be. But yeah, and on Zelle, yes, that's fine. I don't have a problem with it. I also had a Venmo. I don't currently have a business Venmo, but I actually don't really get clients that have asked for Zelle. My practice management software accepts many um, different forms of payment, credit, debit, e-check. There's a pay later option with a firm. Nobody's actually even tried to use that. So that hasn't been an issue, but okay. And then somebody else has asked, do you only take your flat fee after the work is completed, no retainer? Then I assume, if so, how do you not deposit the retainer into your trust account first and then transfer it into your operating account. It's not required in New Jersey, so no, I take it up front. I will sometimes accept payment plans, but generally speaking, I try to discourage that because I'm an attorney, not a bank, and and nor do I want to be a babysitter. Um, so yes, that's how I take it up front, and it's it's earned upon receipt. It's for the work. Now, I put in the retainer agreement that it is um that the flat fee is non-refundable. That's obviously not entirely true. If I don't complete work on something, then or if I get, they substitute somebody else in, um, you know, almost immediately, yes, of course they're going to get a refund. I, I have to comply with, reasonableness, and also figure out, if I get a fee arbitration, am I going to win if I didn't do any, a lot of work? But it's not an issue. Most clients don't have an issue with paying the whole thing up front. They understand it covers the entire representation other than a trial. There is the separate trial fee, which does not get charged to them unless the case gets scheduled for trial. And the person who asked about the public defender license to practice in state, I don't have an answer to that. That apparently that's sort of just outside of my ability to answer. Well, oh, I'm sorry. Well, d- I don't know about public defenders. It's not an issue for me. I can be physically located in state B, but I'm practicing in state A. But when it comes to public defenders, that I don't know. Moving on. So recommended tech stack. This is um what is in my tech stack. Just a little graphic because, you know, looking at words can get really boring on these. So this is what I use. There's a full list on the next slide, so we'll move there. Okay. I'm a Mac girl. I have an iMac for my desktop because the screen is very big. I have a MacBook, which I take with me, when I travel, or sometimes if my fiance who works at night is sleeping, I might just go into the dining room and use my laptop, normal ways people do it. But I do have them both. I find that it increases my productivity. For email, I use Google Workspace Business Standard, and then that obviously includes Google Drive. But for generally speaking, for my document storage, I use Dropbox. I can, share links with the clients. I know you can do that with Google Drive also, but I'm more comfortable with Dropbox. It's a personal decision. It doesn't have to be your personal decision. There are other options as well. And then actually Clio, which is my practice management software, does also have a Clio drive. I use both the Clio drive and Dropbox. For redundancy sake, and also because if I ever move from Clio Manage, I don't want to lose everything because that sounds horrifying. So Kristen's asked, are you using Clio for case management and time tracking? I'm familiar with Clio, but not familiar with flat fees. So wondering if you're tracking your time per case too. I should be, Kristen. I used to. I was really good at it. And I am not doing it consistently anymore. But the reason that I use time tracking is basically to look at my output in terms of hours on a case and determine whether or not I think I'm charging enough on a particular type of matter. You're going to get the thing with flat fees is this. Most of the time you're going to make maybe more money than you would make hourly. Sometimes you're going to get beat by a lot. So there are some cases that you think, if I charge $10,000 on a type of, a particular type of criminal superior court case. Oh boy. Sometimes I look at the time tracking that I do and I just want to, put my head in my hands and cry. But the majority of the time, it's the opposite. So, anyway, um, for my client relationship management system, Clio Grow, CRM just basically keeps me all my new leads and where they came from and the stage of the intake. It's pretty good. I'm sure there are more robust CRMs out there that might work for different kinds of practices. Again, it's just me and it works for me right now. And I definitely don't utilize all the features, but I am continuing to try and get better at that when I've got time. Um, and let's see, Leonard is saying nuance legal version 6 for dictation. How cost effective is Smith? That's for okay. Um, okay. So I'm gonna talk quickly about the dictation issue. I don't dictate. That's the I mean, I I I don't I type really fast. I just don't dictate. So I appreciate that as a recommendation, and I would be happy to check it out, but I mean, the rare times I dictate, it'll be in a letter, and I just use the, dictation software that's in Microsoft Office. Okay. So for the new things that I'm doing, AI, Clio Draft, I've found is pretty good. It takes some time to set up. You can hire people to set it up. But I did it myself based on they've got some good videos and they tell you how to do it. And that has been really good for me so far. It's definitely cut down on the amount of time it takes me to draft certain kinds of letters. And remember, since I'm a solo, I'm doing all my own admin work as well. So that's really important for me to get a lot of time efficiency out of that. Clio Manage AI is good. I don't find that it has given me quite the same return on my time as Clio Draft. But one thing it does do that is wonderful for me, is it'll take a document and extract the dates and create calendar entries for me on a particular case. That is fantastic. So if you get a hearing notice or if you get whatever you're getting in your particular practice area that has dates that need to go on your calendar to remind you of things, it will extract them. It analyzes the document, extracts them, and then you get to edit them before you put them on your calendar, and it's fabulous. And my newest thing that I got, I think last week or the week before, is called Justice Text, and it is really cool. It's great for my practice because I get a lot of body worn camera video, and that is basically what they do. You upload videos, and I think it will do like deposition videos and things like that as well. But mostly it's for body worn camera videos or dashboard camera videos, interrogation room videos, and it will transcribe them. And then when you play the video, it will, at the bottom of the screen, have closed caption. And it is pretty accurate. It rates itself usually at about 96% accuracy. Sometimes it's a little bit less than that. But if you are getting, as I often do, 15 to 20 videos on a case, because every police officer who comes to a scene or is involved with a case in some way has a body worn camera. Like, I don't know, 70, sometimes 75% or 80% of these videos are not relevant. They're the officer talking to the person that is picking up your client from the police station after they're being released, or they are the officer who is sitting in his vehicle. So we were staring at his steering wheel, sitting in his vehicle, and he is waiting for the tow truck to come. These are not things I need to spend my time looking at, but they don't come with file names that tell you what they are. So I upload them and then I can very easily tell. So that is super great. I use my payment processor is Clio Payments. I do see that there are a ton of questions coming in, and I think at this point I'm probably going to get to the majority of them at the end. But I see them and I'm going to answer them as I can. Clio Payments is good. I've used LawPay before. I don't know that I've used other ones in the past. Clio Payments is good. It integrates right with Clio. That's why I use it. The fees are not astronomical. To Leonard's point, Zelle is free. I do need to set that up for my business. Thank you, Leonard. Um, and but I consider the processing fees a cost of doing business. I don't charge them to my clients. It is entirely your choice whether you want to charge them to your clients. I'm not here to tell you how to run your life or how to run your practice. I consider it a cost of doing business because it's convenient for me. Doesn't have to be that way for you. Okay. Um, for documents, I use Microsoft Office Suite. Yes. Could I use Google Docs? I could. I don't like it as much. And for my virtual receptionist, I use Smith AI. And I think it was Leonard asked if it was cost effective. It is for me. It costs me about $500 a month. I get 60 phone calls. They don't charge by the minute, which is awesome. They charge by the phone call, and if I go over, I think it's like $8 or $9.50 per call. Most of the time, I try to answer the phone if I can, so I'm not hitting that 60 calls. And if it's a sales call or something, they don't even charge you. My phone service is Cornexa. Use whatever phone service you want. There are so many. Ring Central. Um, I think Zoom even has its own. So I guess shout out to Zoom, has its own phone service. This is just what I was using when I was in New Jersey. It cost me about $72 a month, which seems pretty reasonable. So that's what I'm doing. I have Cox for my internet. As I mentioned, I moved from a house where I could choose my own internet service provider to an apartment where Cox is the only thing. It works most of the time. Occasionally, the internet goes out. No big deal. And I use Zoom for video conferencing. I do pay for a subscription to Zoom so that I can meet with clients when I need to. I don't do it that often, but I don't get that little countdown that tells me, at the end of the 40 minutes, 10 minutes before you've got 10 minutes left, and then it gives you like a little thing. Okay. So, Robert has asked you, how do you handle depositions and trial prep? So, depositions I don't do, not in, at least in New Jersey, they don't do them in criminal work. So sorry. And is trial prep critical to your practice? I mean, yes and no. I guess I want to know what you mean exactly. Most of my cases don't go to trial. The vast majority of them do not go to trial. Like in every other jurisdiction, the vast majority of criminal and traffic cases get worked out. They don't all go to trial. But for justice text, at least that's helpful to me because if a case is not going to trial, I can review videos a lot more efficiently. I can also download the transcript that it produces and be able to have an understanding and something I can just refer to without me going through watching every second. I do watch them, but watching every second, taking notes on it, I've got the ability to have the AI analyze it and transcribe it so I can pick out the relevant areas that are important for my, particular case and my defense of a particular case. Now, obviously, if I was preparing for a trial, I'm not using that and I'm not relying on that. I am instead going to be uh, sitting down with probably my pen and paper, because I'm pretty old school when it comes to that. And doing a lot of stopping and starting on the um on the video, and taking extremely, careful notes so that I know how to cross-examine, police officer, for example. But it's a great tool for me right now. Um, Let me just see. Um, okay. Just practical tips, as we're getting, towards the end of the hour, so I'm gonna try to move a little quicker. Um, Practical tips. These are just my things that I find helpful, okay? Um, for staffing, you need to think about their work schedule. Are they working on their own schedule, like a 1099 kind of situation, or do they have set work hours, which would make them more of a W-2 employee? And where are they working? Obviously, if you're fully remote, they're going to have to be remote too. Are you going to provide them equipment such as a computer, telephone, scanner, printer? If you are, have them sign an equipment policy so that they know what they can use it for, and that they have to return it if their employment with you ends. So if you need a copy of an equipment policy, I have one. I can rustle one up for you. Obviously, I don't have anybody who's signed one in a while, because I've been true solo for a while. Um, and um, this is something that my coach suggested, and my former partner and I really implemented, which is to have a daily check-in meeting on the phone or video to go over projects and tasks and answer their questions. That way, hopefully, you're not answering just an unending string of texts or Slacks. I used to use Slack for office messaging. S- It can be really, really distracting if you've got your employee who doesn't work with you. And it's distracting if they work in your physical space as well. Um, Constantly asking you questions when you're trying to get work done, because the purpose of having staff is that they do the admin stuff or the paralegal stuff if that's something you need. It's not something I find particularly helpful in my practice area. But you need to be doing the legal stuff. They're doing the admin stuff. So if you have, unless it's absolutely urgent that they must get the answer immediately, have a daily meeting and have them do those things then. Um, you want to know your physical space? Okay. Well, you can't see because I've got a blue background. Um, but I have a home office. My fiance and I share the office. We got 2 desks in here, and I got 2 dogs snoring behind me at the moment. Um, you want to have a pleasing background. This blue thing is pretty nice. Generally speaking, I just blur my background, but I do have on the wall above the closet that's behind me, I've got all my diplomas and my license, just to make it look a little bit more like an office. But you could use one of the virtual backgrounds that all of the, Zoom or Google Meet or Teams offer. Everybody knows their virtual backgrounds. But so I don't tend to use them. Um, and then your furniture, this is it. Like I said, it might sound stupid, but it's so important to have office furniture that's comfortable and enhances your productivity. I have an L-shaped desk. Um, I need a new chair desperately. For some reason, over the course of the 5 or so years that I've had this chair, I have migrated to the left side of it, which now has a divot in it, and it seems pretty good on the right side, but I never sit on that side, probably because the L-shaped desk on the left is where the L is. So I just need a new chair. But it's important because you're sitting here all the time. You're always in your house now, right? And when you're always in your house, or if you decide to have a space that's not in your home, if you're always there, if you're always in your house, you can work at any time. I don't recommend it, But it is always there for you, so better make it comfortable. Mail, so your snail mail, where you're receiving it. Like I said, what I did is I continued having the same people that where I had my office originally, and then they were just having mail, and I would pick it up when I went remote, and then when I moved, they're scanning it to me. It works perfectly fine. In the rare occasion that I get, for instance, a check or discovery that comes on a disc or something that they have to mail to me, they mail it to me. And if you're using your home address, which I do not, obviously, um, and I never did, consider whether you have the type of clients you'd be comfortable with knowing where you live. Um, Here's a question. Do you have confidentiality contracts with the office that provides you mail services? I don't, they're a law firm also. And my office is, I pay them their receptionist gets paid, uh, additional money. But they are also a law firm. So, perhaps it's something that I should, uh, think about. But because they are a law firm and not another type of business, and they're subject to the exact same things, they're also essentially just most of the mail I get is court notices. It's not anything that would implicate any sort of confidentiality. If they were to look up my client's name, they'd say I represent, like it's not anything that implicates confidentiality. For the most part, I can't think of an instance where they sent me something that did. But it's a good question. Um, we went over the technology already. And then the big thing that we were also, okay, so Steven says use a PO box. Well, who's gonna pick up the mail? And also in New Jersey, you can't just use a PO box. You have to have an address that is not a PO box. My first employer did use a PO box because they didn't always get the mail when it was sent to the office. So he invested in a PO box, and somebody had to go and get it every day. So anyway, um, for in-person court appearances, how are you going to handle them if you're not living nearby? Um, you have to have a reliable crew of other attorneys. That's been a challenge. I've had um some people who said that they were willing to help and then backed out of it, and then other people that it's been a process, but I finally have a reliable crew that does a really good job and who will be happy to speak to my clients ahead of time, because some of the time that's really um what the client is looking for. Is they really, when it gets to that stage where they're going to have to go in person, they really do just want somebody to hold their hand, and they want to know who that person is. So I have a reliable crew that will talk to them beforehand, or at least, get an introduction. I make clear to the client that the legal um, questions should still be directed to me, because that's very important. And then will judge let you appear virtually while your client is in person, and are you comfortable with that arrangement? I've done it one time. One time. My client happened to have his girlfriend with him who made him feel very, you know, very comfortable. I was on Zoom, and the judge is just a gem of a human being. So that was not a problem. But generally speaking, no, I'm not comfortable with it because I want my clients to be able to ask questions. And it's really been hard. Um, to even on Zoom, it's hard for them to ask me questions while we're in court. It is easier. In-person court is easier in some ways because you've got your client right there, and if they've got questions about something, you just drag them outside the courtroom and get them to ask you there. So that's great. And now To Howard's question from the beginning of how do you handle a DWI defense in New Jersey living in Arizona? Here's how. The only thing that's in person is a plea. So I don't have to go in person. So I get everything that I would normally get. And the only thing that has changed is, well, I'm sorry, a plea or a trial. Sorry. Um, the only thing that has changed is that I need to send somebody else to do the in-person plea hearing. If it's a trial, I'm going to go. That's just the way it is. And again, it's my decision to move, so I'm not charging them for that other than the trial fee. Okay. And then I just want to ask, the anonymous person who asked, my question might be premature, but are you also allowed to practice abroad/internationally? That's a good question. I don't have the answer because I mean, I would think so. It doesn't, New Jersey rules at least don't require you to be, they just say if you're not physically in New Jersey, these are the things that you need to do. It doesn't say that your physical location can't be, in France, for instance. My fiance is originally from France, so hypothetically we could move there. I don't think that's going to happen. It'd be cool though. But yeah, hypothetically I could do that. I don't really see any reason, as long as I am following all of the rules, for not being physically in New Jersey, then I don't see any reason why I couldn't. So, running out of time. Okay. So, the is remote work here to stay? I'm gonna make some predictions. I think it is, for the most part. In 2022, the New Jersey Supreme Court issued an order on the future of court operations, and they set a framework for the future, and delineated which court functions would continue remotely and which would go back to being in person. It's been followed strictly by some courts, loosely by others, not at all by others. So there's really not any enforcement of the order by the Supreme Court. So, for instance, a DWI plea is supposed to be in person. I just did one last week on Zoom, 2 on Zoom, I think last week. They're really not supposed to do that, but some of them do it. Most of them don't. There's no enforcement of that. The Supreme Court doesn't say, hey, you're taking DWI pleas virtually, and you're really not supposed to do that. They don't care. I mean, the Supreme Court does not generally exert a whole lot of control over the municipal courts. A good example of that is when there's snow, the entire state, like all the state courts will be closed, but municipal courts are not considered state courts, even though they are part of the judiciary. They get to make their own decision about whether or not they're open. The Chief Justice can close every other state court, but the municipal courts still get to make their own decisions. But despite their lack of enforcement of their order, they do seem pretty committed to continuing remote hearings in perpetuity. And as is even nearly, obviously I did this last year, nearly 6 years after the pandemic began, because I think we're like this week at 6 years. So that's it. I am going to answer the rest of these questions. So Kristen had asked, how has been your experience on WebEx for court hearings? It started with understanding the practice area you operate in. There are many judges in, I assume it's Nebraska, or is it New England? Nebraska that have stated they will not do WebEx, even just like for experts subpoenaed to testify at trial, while other judges have no issues. How to navigate this preference? An attorney will remove their practice online. So for me, I know which judges and which counties. For instance, there's one county that I don't take even traffic cases in, because I know that everything is in person. It's just a matter of knowing your jurisdiction and knowing your judges. And again, I'm in municipal court. There are over 100 municipal courts in New Jersey. So sometimes I get a call on something and I'm not 100% sure whether or not whether they do things in um, in person or not for a particular type of case. Sometimes I'll call the court. Sometimes I'll ask some colleagues that do it. But also I don't take serious criminal cases anymore because even though most of the hearings are supposed to be virtual with some exceptions, they don't. Most of the superior court criminal stuff, which is our felony level criminal stuff, is all in person. So I just don't take them. I refer them out and I get some referral fees, which is nice. It helps to bump up the income a little bit. Um, Trials in New Jersey, at the very least, are always in person. And quite honestly, I don't think I would even consent to a traffic trial that was not in person. So it's just too hard. I mean, how does a judge, how do you cross-examine? How does a judge evaluate credibility? And in New Jersey, um, municipal court trials are all bench trials. Um, Somebody else has asked if you have a 2 or 3+ day trial, do you fly back to New Jersey or try to do it remotely? Again, since I would not do a trial remotely, that's a personal choice based on my practice area. If it was a 2 or 3 day trial, yeah, I'd fly back. For a 1 day trial, I'd fly back. Most of my trials are only several hours because we're talking about misdemeanor level offenses or traffic offenses. If it's a simple speeding ticket, I'm probably gonna give my trial fee to another attorney to do it. Um, but so then how often you travel back to New Jersey to handle some appearances personally? Um, I've been back once. It was about a month ago, and that was that. It was easy. And but trials, like a trial on a misdemeanor case, I'll go back for that. So, I see that Nina's back. So I hope that everybody got something out of this. If you have questions, I'm certainly willing to answer. I'm really, really, really passionate about helping other attorneys achieve this because it's a great life. It really is. So if you have questions, there's my email address, and I'm happy to answer questions. Keep them coming. And thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much for all of your insights, sharing your process, and all of that really helpful information for going remote with the law practice. We really appreciate it and really appreciate you time and taking the time to answer the questions.
Thank you to everybody for coming, and thank you for the opportunity to talk about this.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Lauren. And thank you to all of our audience members who participated. We want to thank you all so much for joining us for another Justia webinar. I wanted to remind you all, as I did at the top of our presentation, of the services available to you through Justia Elevate. It's our innovative, feature-packed website solution that has tools like our Justia AI Writer to help you craft content, the AI-powered Justia Chat to help you capture leads, and Justia FAQs for AI to help you stand out in AI results. With all these tools and more, you'll have everything you need, so you can always check out elevate.justia.com/price. Plans start at just $82.50 a month, unpaid annually. Thank you all so much for joining, and have a wonderful rest of your day. Thanks so much. Thanks for watching. We hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did enjoy it, please click the like button and subscribe to our channel for more videos on law practice and legal marketing. See you in our next video.